We think it's necessary that they should explore that, particularly when you deal with the mining charter systems where, for instance, there's too much giveaway to private capital in the name of BEE. Part of that should actually be given to the rest of South Africa through a national sovereign fund rather than to individuals. And that's why we should act at best in the public interest first, that is the general South African population, rather than the government necessarily giving individuals more money. And I think we also feel that there should be much more public interventions and commitment to build public economy to support areas where, for instance, private sector has not been able to intervene and build sustainable economies and so forth. And where, for instance, it will take long for private sector to make appropriate investments, the government could actually make available budgets and take initiatives to establish such kind of institutions. For instance, the furniture industry. We require that as soon as is possible. Largely, we import more furniture in this country, which we used to produce here. So there's a production capacity and skills that have been weighed down by the markets, but we can redevelop that and use the public sphere of procurement as the basis to guarantee their existence. We have thousands and thousands of schools that need to be supplied with furniture and so forth, government offices and so forth. It's just unacceptable that government offices procure furniture from outside this country, and we are having a campaign for buy local.
You and I know, especially a manufacturing hub that you're speaking about. For instance, when the Hammanskraal manufacturing hub fell, with the Goma line, you can tell that we have strayed away from what we needed to be. Now we are trying to re-energize the things that we used to have. Apologies. How long will it take for us to have a proper township economy, let alone a public economy as you speak about?
Well, there are short gains that have been identified in the agreement, and we hope that part of those short gains, some of them we could start implementation in the next month or so. And I think that the mechanism that has been created for monitoring, in which the president will sit with the team every 3 months to oversee implementation of those programs, could actually make it easy for us to monitor capability of implementation of the agreements, and also to make sure that those that are quicker to do, we can actually roll them out. We don't have to wait for a long period to do so. And the agreement has identified a series of them. There are those that, for instance, in the agricultural sector, that we call the aggregate impacts, that have aggregate impact if they are connected together. And those ones, as you know, agriculture is a seasonal thing. In a simple season, you are able to produce and reap and make good rewards out of it. So we think there could be quick turnarounds in some of the sections, and in some of the others, we also want linkages between immediate and short-term interventions as well as medium to long-term interventions.
Mr. Mapaila, talk is cheap. There will be people who's looking at the summit saying, how is that going to change my life? The short-term measures that should come out of the summit should really be felt by young people, by people who had almost given up on looking for work. That's where South Africa finds itself. Will those people have reason to believe that this summit can be the qualitative change to their lives that they need, that this summit will give them the dignity of work?
Yes, I think we have also spoken, which because of time we couldn't highlight it, the whole notion of the concept of the right to work, which we think we need to revisit so that there's an absolute guarantee of all South Africans, adult South Africans, to have access to work and restore their human dignity of income. But I think the mechanism that has been established, that tool, it's a very important mechanism. There will be an almost full-time team that will monitor the interventions and coordinate the commitments made by different sectoral partners from government, business and so forth, as well as per each sector. Because this agreement looked into each specific sector, and there will be certainly quite good jobs that will be created. We've been assured that those will be much more quality jobs, and if they are quality jobs, that means the pay is good as well, they are sustainable, and therefore they are able to even make a multiplier impact in terms of creating secondary jobs.
Mr. Mapaila, my final question is that through the last administration of Jacob Zuma, we saw a great trust deficit being eroded, not just between government and business, but also between labor and government. There was a lot of issues that remained really stumbling blocks towards any kind of progression. One, I want to know as a result of this, who holds who accountable between all the social partners that have come to sign on this agreement, the social pact that has been made, and also what happens when someone drops the ball.
Yes, that's why this agreement is supposed to be a binding agreement. But we've also highlighted the fact that South Africa is like the ship in the stormy seas. And when we are in that stormy seas, we need all of us to save the ship. If you sit down and enjoy the luxuries like what happened in the Titanic, when other few people are trying to save the ship, you will perish in the sea. So that's the situation that we are now. So all social partners appreciate that we are in a serious predicament, serious economic downturn, and we need an upward mobility. And that's why we've also called on the Reserve Bank, its mandate to be reviewed, so that its policy stance should also focus on job creation, on growth, as well as on supporting industrialization.
All of those things scare investors when they hear that. They think about Turkey. They want the Reserve Bank to prove its independence, that it's not controlled by politicians, and you can appreciate the need for the independence.
The Reserve Bank, it's guaranteed in the Constitution. Its function is spelled out clearly in the Constitution, including its relationship between the Minister of Finance and the Governor of the Reserve Bank, which is a component of mandating process as in the Constitution, and it also gives Parliament a policy mandate to continue to update possibilities for new mandates of the Reserve Bank. And many other Reserve Banks have done that. For instance, when we have a crisis of jobs, like in our case, which is a national imperative, you remandate the Reserve Bank to respond to that as well and make sure that they can boost a job creation. So they are not just only focused on monetary policy, inflation targeting and so forth, but they can also go into other areas, macroeconomic environment, and look into that and see how they can support industrialization. For instance, support for our state-owned enterprises, even explore quantity easing measures, for instance, that have not been explored. Other big economies have done that. American economy's recovery was largely on the basis of quantity easing measures. European economies have done the same. Why shouldn't we be allowed to do so if we can save our economy and create more jobs and actually make sure that South Africa can live better? Those are issues that we've simply said, let's explore every other possibility to make sure that we stave off the downturn of our economy and make it a growing economy that's also creating jobs and creating wealth for our people.